All right, so let's dive right in. Curcumin. You've probably heard of it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's everywhere these days.
It really is the supposed wonder compound from turmeric.
Right, exactly.
It's touted for, like everything, helping with inflammation.
Yeah, memory even.
Yeah, memory. But does it actually live up to the hype?
Yeah, that's the question, especially when it comes to cognitive decline.
Exactly. So we dug into a 2024 meta-analysis
Oh, wow. Okay.
to find out, and it's straight from Schmiedeberg's Archives of Pharmacology. Quite a mouthful,
Yeah.
but it's a good one.
And this meta-analysis is especially interesting, you know?
Oh, how so?
Well, it zeroed in on curcumin's effects on cognitive decline, but specifically in animal models for Alzheimer's disease.
Okay, so really specific focus.
Yeah, they looked at 33 different studies.
Wow, 33. That's a lot of data.
It is. It gives us a really solid base to work with.
Okay, so 33 studies, curcumin, Alzheimer's. What did they find? Did curcumin show any promise for, like, improving brain function?
Yeah, well, the results are a little nuanced.
Okay.
But overall, yes. Curcumin seemed to have a significant positive effect on cognitive performance.
Well, that's good news, right?
It is. It is. The researchers mainly used the Morris Water Maze test.
Okay.
It's a standard way to measure learning and memory in animals.
All right, so that's good news. Curcumin seems to be doing something good,
Yeah.
but I'm guessing it's not quite as straightforward as that, right? You said nuance.
Exactly. When they dug a little deeper, they saw the effects of curcumin. They varied depending on a few key things.
Well, good.
The species of animal,
Okay.
the sex of the animal,
Interesting.
and even how the curcumin was administered.
Wow. Okay, so we're talking some serious variations here.
Yeah.
What kind of variations, though?
Well, for example, rats. They seem to benefit more from curcumin in learning tasks compared to mice.
Huh. So different species react differently.
It seems that way, yeah.
Makes you wonder if there's something about rat brains that makes them more receptive to curcumin or
Oh,
something.
right. It's a fascinating thought.
It is. Okay, so different species. What about the other variations?
Perhaps even more interesting was the difference they found between the male animals and the female animals.
Okay.
The females, across the board, they showed better cognitive performance.
Oh, wow.
Both in learning and memory.
So that raises questions about whether hormonal factors might play a role in how curcumin affects the brain.
For sure.
That's really intriguing. It really underscores how much we don't know about the brain and how different compounds interact with it.
Yeah,
Especially when you consider things like sex differences,
absolutely.
Okay, so species, sex. What about the way curcumin was given? Did that matter too?
It did, yeah. The study showed that when curcumin was given orally, like in a capsule or mixed into food,
Yeah.
it seemed to be more effective than when it was injected.
Oh, interesting. So maybe better absorption that way, or how it's broken down in the body when you take it orally.
Could be, yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I've always wondered about that, like
Hmm.
how much of a supplement actually gets absorbed depending on how you take it,
Yeah.
So curcumin, showing some positive results. But with these variations, it's like peeling back the layers of an onion.
Ah, I like
The
it.
more we look, the more complexity we find.
Absolutely. And speaking of complexities, there's another crucial aspect of this meta-analysis we need to think about,
Okay.
and it has to do with the quality of the studies themselves.
Ah, right. Not all research is created equal.
Right, exactly. Some studies are way more rigorous than others.
So what did they find about the quality of the research in this meta-analysis?
Well, they noted that there was a pretty big range in the quality of the studies included. Some were really robust, careful controls, randomization, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
But others, they were missing some of those key elements.
I see. So a mix of strong studies and maybe some not so strong ones.
Exactly. And here's the really interesting part.
Okay.
The studies that had, shall we say, lower quality methods, they actually showed greater positive effects from the curcumin.
Wait, really? That seems counterintuitive. Shouldn't the higher quality studies be showing the strongest effects?
You'd think so, right?
Yeah.
But it just goes to show how bias can creep into research, especially when the studies aren't as rigorous.
So it's not necessarily that curcumin is more effective in those cases. It's that the results might be skewed because of how the study was designed.
Exactly.
Okay, that's a good reminder for all of us to be critical of the research we read and look beyond just the headlines.
Couldn't agree more.
So we've got these promising findings about curcumin's potential benefits for cognitive function, but with these variations based on species, sex, even how it's taken.
Right.
And then we have to remember about the quality of the research itself. when we're evaluating the results? Curcumin, it's a bit of a puzzle, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. But now let's think bigger picture for a second. How do these findings from animal studies translate to humans?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question.
Does this mean curcumin's a guaranteed win for people with Alzheimer's?
This is where it gets really relevant for you, our listener. What does this deep dive actually mean for you? Let's explore that.
Well, even though these animal studies are they're exciting,
Yeah?
we can't just assume those results apply perfectly to humans.
Right.
Remember, there was that previous meta-analysis of human trials,
Yeah.
and it actually found that the evidence for curcumin being beneficial in dementia, it was insufficient.
Oh, so where does that leave us? Are we back at square one?
Not quite. It just means we need more research.
Yeah.
And specifically well-designed human trials, those are crucial.
Okay.
The animal studies give us clues, potential paths to explore,
Yeah.
but we can't jump to any conclusions just yet.
That makes sense. Science is a process, right? Sometimes it takes time to get those really clear answers. But it is encouraging, that researchers are looking into curcumin's potential.
It is, especially when you consider the very limited treatment options that we have for Alzheimer's right now.
That's true. So while we wait for that more concrete evidence, what can people do? Are there things that our listeners can do right now to support their brain health, maybe even reduce their risk of Alzheimer's?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. One of the biggest things is just maintaining a healthy lifestyle.
Okay, so what does that look like?
Well, it includes a balanced diet, rich in fruits, vegetables, whole grains.
Yeah, the usual suspects.
Right. But they're important for a reason.
They are. It seems like good nutrition is always at the top of the list for good health overall.
It is, and our brains, they're no exception.
Not at all.
Yeah.
What else can we do to keep our cognitive gears turning smoothly?
Regular exercise, that's another key factor.
Of course.
Physical activity, it helps the brain in so many ways. Improves blood flow, reduces inflammation. It can even help grow new brain cells.
Wow. So it's not just about our bodies.
Right.
It's about keeping our minds sharp, too. I have to admit, sometimes it's tough to find that motivation to exercise.
Oh, I know.
But knowing it can help my brain, that gives me a little extra push, I gotta say.
I hear ya. And don't forget sleep.
Oh, yeah, good sleep.
So crucial for how our brains work.
It is.
When we sleep, our brains, they clear out waste products. They consolidate memories. It's like they're doing some housekeeping, some filing, keeping everything running nice and smooth.
I'm a big believer in sleep.
Yeah.
I always feel much sharper after I've had a good night's rest.
It's like hitting the reset button for your brain.
It is. It is.
Okay, so we've got the healthy diet, the exercise, the sleep. What about keeping our brains active, mentally?
Right. Well, challenging your brain with mental activities, it's like a workout for your gray matter.
Oh, I like that.
Things like puzzles, reading, learning new skills,
Yeah. Even just having those good, engaging conversations. They can all help to keep those cognitive skills sharp.
So it's all about staying mentally active.
Yeah, use it or lose it.
Right, exactly. Is that true for our brains too? Like if we don't use them, we lose them?
In a way, yeah. When we challenge our brains regularly, we build up this cognitive reserve. It's like a buffer against age-related decline.
Oh, I love that. Building a reserve of brain power. It's like investing in your future cognitive health.
Exactly.
And speaking of things that can affect our brains, we can't forget stress. We all experience it. But how does chronic stress affect our brain health?
Well, chronic stress, it's really bad for both our physical and mental health.
Yeah.
When we're stressed all the time, it leads to more inflammation in the body,
Okay.
including in the brain. And that inflammation can actually damage brain cells. It can mess with how well our brains work.
So finding those healthy ways to manage stress is just as important as eating right and exercising when it comes to protecting our brain health. It's all connected, huh?
It really is. It's about taking a whole person approach to well-being.
I like that.
So, things like meditation, yoga, spending time in nature, even just deep breathing, those can all make a big difference.
I think a lot of people underestimate the power of those simple things. Just taking a few minutes to disconnect, to relax, it can do wonders for your mental clarity.
Oh, absolutely. It's all about finding what works for you and making it a habit.
That's great advice. Okay, so we've covered a lot. Healthy diet, exercise, sleep, mental stimulation, and stress management. Those are all important things to focus on, but I'm sure some listeners are wondering about curcumin specifically, right?
Yeah.
We talked about its potential benefits, but we also talked about how well it's absorbed, those bioavailability issues. So if someone does want to try curcumin, are there ways to get around those absorption challenges?
That's a great question. And scientists are actually working on that right now.
Oh, okay.
They're looking into different ways to make curcumin more bioavailable. Well, one thing is to use different formulations, combining it with other compounds that help with absorption.
Okay.
Another approach is using, this is cool, nanotechnology.
Oh, wow.
They encapsulate the curcumin in these tiny little particles.
Nanoparticles, that sounds futuristic.
It kind of is.
It's incredible to see how technology is being used to really unlock the potential of natural compounds.
Yeah, it's a fascinating field for sure. And while we need more research to find those optimal ways to boost curcumin's bioavailability, these advances are, they're giving us hope. We can find effective ways to harness its benefits.
It really does feel like we're on the edge of something big. We've talked about what the science says, but I'm curious, from your perspective as an expert, what are some of the unanswered questions about curcumin? The ones you're really interested in seeing addressed?
Oh, there's so much we still don't know.
Like what? Give us some examples.
Okay, well, for starters, what are the optimal dosages? For different people, different conditions. And how does curcumin actually work its magic, like at the molecular level?
Yeah, what's going on in there?
Exactly. And then how can we take curcumin-based therapies and really tailor them to target very specific aspects of brain health,
So many possibilities.
Right. These are the questions I'm really excited to see answered.
It does feel like we've only just scratched the surface.
We have. And it makes you realize that even with all the amazing advances we've made in science, there's always more to learn.
Always. That's what keeps things interesting, right?
Exactly. That's what makes this whole field so exciting. Every new discovery just opens up a whole new world of questions and possibilities.
It's a never-ending journey of exploration. And speaking of journeys, this deep dive has been quite a ride, hasn't it?
It has.
We've explored these potential benefits of curcumin for cognitive health. We dug into the details of scientific research.
Yeah, all those nuances.
Right, and even talked about, that holistic approach to brain health.
It's been a pretty comprehensive look, I'd say.
It has. But before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about.
Okay.
We've discussed how this meta-analysis found a positive effect with curcumin, but also highlighted that we need more research, especially in humans.
Definitely.
So let's say you're tasked with designing a human trial to study curcumin and its effects on Alzheimer's. What are the most important things to consider?
Oh, that's a great question. Designing a human trial, one that's really rigorous and meaningful, it's not easy.
It's complicated, yeah.
It is, but it's so important. If we think about the bigger picture, it's about taking those promising findings from preclinical studies, the animal studies, and translating them into actual treatments, things that can help people in the real world.
That's the goal. So what would be at the top of your list as a scientist designing this trial?
Well, first things first, choosing the right participants. That's absolutely crucial.
Okay.
We need to carefully define who can be in the study and who can't.
Inclusion and exclusion criteria. Right.
Exactly. We want to make sure we're enrolling people who are most likely to benefit from curcumin and people who represent the diversity of the population affected by Alzheimer's.
So thinking about age, stage of the disease, maybe even genetic predispositions.
Yeah, all of that. We need a good representative sample.
Right, making sure it reflects the real world.
Exactly. Then we need to figure out the dosage. What's the optimal dose of curcumin to use? And what's the best form of it?
Right, because of those bioavailability challenges we talked about.
Exactly. We might need to try different delivery methods, different dosages, to see what really works best in humans.
I imagine those innovative approaches you mentioned earlier, like using nanoparticles, could be really interesting to test here.
Oh, absolutely. And then another big one is the length of the trial. How long does it need to run?
Right, because Alzheimer's, it's a progressive disease.
It is. So we need to study curcumin's effects over a long enough period to see if it can really slow down that cognitive decline.
I bet that would take a lot of commitment.
It would, from both the researchers and the participants. But remember, we're not looking for a quick fix here. We're looking for a potential long-term strategy to manage this disease.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Huh.
Okay, so we've got the participants, the dosage, the duration. What else?
Well, we need to decide how we're actually going to measure the effects. How do we know if curcumin is working?
Good point. What are we looking for?
We'd need to use those sensitive, reliable cognitive assessments to track changes in memory, thinking, behavior, all of that. And we need to do that over time.
So it's not just about how people feel, but about those objective measurements of cognitive function.
Exactly. And of course, safety is always paramount. We'd have to monitor the participants closely, look for any potential side effects, any bad reactions.
Of course, safety first.
Always. It's about finding that balance between potential benefits and any potential risks.
Right, that's so important. It's easy to get excited about a potential new treatment, but we can't forget about safety.
Definitely not. And we can't forget about the placebo effect either.
Ah, the power of the mind.
Exactly. We'd need to make sure that any positive effects we see are really due to curcumin and not just because people expect to get better.
So a placebo-controlled design.
Exactly. And finally, I can't overemphasize this enough, transparency and rigor in every single aspect of the trial, from the design to the data collection to the analysis.
So we can trust the results.
Yes. And that means sticking to the highest scientific standards.
It all goes back to what we talked about earlier, right? About the quality of research. We need to be critical consumers of information. Understand how those studies are done. Make sure they're done right.
Couldn't agree more. And it just highlights how science is a team effort. It's not about individual researchers working alone. It's about working together, building on what we already know, sharing our findings, and pushing forward to understand and treat these complex diseases like Alzheimer's.
That's a great point. It's a reminder that we're all in this together, researchers, individuals, everyone. We're all trying to improve our health and well-being.
We are. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with this thought. The search for effective treatments for Alzheimer's, it's a journey. And while curcumin shows promise, it's just one piece of a very complex puzzle. The more we learn, the more we realize how much more there is to discover.
It's a journey of continuous learning and discovery. And I think that's a perfect place to leave it to all our listeners out there. Keep those curious minds engaged, stay up to date on the latest science, and never stop learning.
That's it. Knowledge is power. And by learning more, we can make informed decisions about our health and well-being.
Absolutely. Until our next deep dive, keep exploring and keep those brains sharp.